The audience roared with laughter under the blazing studio lights. The host, famous for her sarcasm and sharp tongue, smirked and leaned forward. With mock seriousness, she tossed a jab. "You, Keanu, do you really believe someone's up? They're watching over you, especially after everything you've been through." Laughter exploded again. The camera cut. Keanu said nothing. His fingers lightly touched the small cross around his neck. His eyes? Calm, steady, unshaken. No argument, no reaction. Just silence. Then a low, grounded voice echoed in the narration. What that host didn't know was that she was moments away from a shift that would shake her understanding of faith and maybe even her life. Keanu Reeves wasn't just a Hollywood name. He was a man who had lost everything and still stood. Not because of fame, not because of strength, but because of the very thing they tried to laugh at that night. Faith. Stay with us. This story doesn't just unfold, it awakens something. And before we begin, drop a comment and tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We read them all. The studio glowed like an arena. Overhead lights beamed down, bouncing off. Sleek black walls. The audience clapped and buzzed, expecting a comedy, a scandal. Maybe both. The show was known for it. Controversy, sarcasm, and interviews that cut like blades. Then the host walked out. The crowd erupted. "Ladies and gentlemen, he's an actor, a producer, a motorcycle maniac, a living legend, and apparently a little bit of a monk too. Give it up for the man, the myth, Keanu Reeves." Applause thundered. Keanu stepped in calm, composed. Black jeans, dark blazer. Simple tee. Around his neck, a small cross, subtle but meaningful. It stood out, not for flash, but for what it carried. He nodded, soft smile. No performance, no drama, just walked to his seat like he's walked through 1,000 stages before the interview began. The usual career, recent films, behind-the-scenes stories. Keanu responded with calm clarity. The mood was easy, the laughter flowed, but then, as always on this show, the tone shifted. "Keanu," the host smirked, leaning in, "you seem pretty grounded, maybe even spiritual. But tell me, do you still believe in miracles? After all you've seen in Hollywood, after all you've lost?" Laughter erupted again. Keanu didn't laugh. His eyes didn't blink. He didn't speak, not yet. He just listened, and in that silence there was something deeper, more sacred than any answer. The host joked again. The crowd giggled. Keanu lowered his gaze for a moment, his hand gently brushing the cross. It was nothing dramatic, but it carried weight. The camera zoomed in slightly. The cross swayed gently, catching light. Then he looked up. Still silent. Still present. The host moved on. More jokes. More irony. Faith as fantasy. Religion as escape. The audience laughed. But a crack formed in the rhythm. Then a sharper question. "Do you really think someone's up there watching you?" Keanu paused. The crowd leaned in. One word the wrong way. He'd be a meme by morning, but one true word? That could change everything. Then he spoke, voice calm, tone steady. Almost a whisper. "If I'm still standing after everything." It wasn't just luck. The words fell like stone in water. Stillness rippled across the room. Laughter faded. Eyes shifted. People glanced at each other, as if silently asking, "Did you feel that?" The camera cut again to the necklace. Now the cross seemed heavier, not an accessory. A statement. The host tried another joke, but the reaction was lukewarm. The atmosphere had changed. Keanu didn't flinch, didn't defend, didn't attack. Just watched. What nobody knew was that in that moment on that stage, that simple cross wasn't just a symbol. It was the start of something no one in that studio was ready to witness. The lights dimmed slightly. But what truly shifted was the energy. What began as just another night of television now hovered somewhere between discomfort and something else. Reflection. The host leaned forward again. Smile forced. Tone perked up. "Well, Keanu, since we're here, let's talk religion." A few chuckles returned. She spoke louder, sharper, sprinkling sarcasm like glitter. "You know what I always say?" She grinned. Religion's just a fairy tale for people too scared to grow up. All that divine plan stuff, it's comforting, sure, but real? Not so much. Laughter bounced again. Some clapped. The show was getting back on track, but Keanu didn't move. He didn't blink, didn't react, didn't resist. He simply let his fingers rest again on the cross. Not clinging. Not flaunting, just grounding himself. The camera caught it. Again, stillness, while the audience enjoyed the routine. The screen slowly began to fade into a voice, a narrator, soft, measured, almost distant. What the world saw on that stage was a man being tested. But what the cameras didn't catch was the road that brought him to that stage. The screen faded to grainy, gray-toned footage, snapshots from Keanu's past, a funeral, a tiny white casket, Keanu standing motionless beside it, dressed in black, face unreadable, still empty, a hospital corridor, a blurred photo of his hand holding someone else's, just off frame. Years later, a subway car, Keanu alone, staring out the window. A book rested in his lap, unopened. The loss of his daughter, the death of his partner, his best friend. Gone, yet never once did he let bitterness define him. His grief became grace. His silence, a quiet form of prayer. The montage paused. Then came voices, real ones, raw, unsanitized, a rideshare driver. He tipped me $500, thought it was a mistake. He just smiled and said, "You were kind." The world needs more of that. A woman. I saw him at a gas station. My car was overheating. He didn't just help, he stayed an hour. No cameras, no rush. A fan. I was crying in the street. He sat next to me like he knew me. He never asked what was wrong. He just listened. Back in the studio, the host kept talking, still reaching for a reaction. She quoted Bible verses with mock drama. Voice raised like an old-school preacher. "The meek shall inherit the earth." Then rolled her eyes. "Yeah, well, good luck with that in L.A." She laughed. The audience responded, but not quite the same. Something was off. The laughs now came with space between them, like echoes, not reactions. Keanu stayed still. The host turned again. This time her voice had a trace of edge. A sliver of irritation. "You're really not going to say anything? I mean, do you seriously believe there's someone out there looking out for you?" For the first time that night, Keanu looked directly at her. There was no anger in his stare, just depth. Then he answered, "If I'm still here, if I'm still standing after everything, it wasn't just luck." The audience stilled again. But this time it wasn't tension. It was reverence, even. The cameras seemed to move slower. Not because of the words, but the way he said them. No script, no drama, just truth. The crowd was quiet. Truly quiet. The laughter had stopped, and what came next would challenge everything they thought they knew about faith, about pain, about redemption. The air in the studio was heavy with stillness, not awkward, but expectant. Like the room was waiting for something. Keanu didn't speak again. He didn't have to. He sat, fingers gently resting on the cross necklace. Not flaunting it, not hiding it, just being. The host shifted uncomfortably. Maybe realizing she'd pushed too far, she forced a small laugh. "Well, that got heavy," she said, with a weak smile. "Maybe we should talk about stunts or puppies or something lighter." A few nervous chuckles followed. But even they faded quickly. The tone had shifted, and there was no going back. Then the narrator's voice returned, measured, low. "What does it mean to have faith in silence, to carry pain, and not let it become bitterness?" Keanu never gave sermons. He never posted quotes. But his life? It was a sermon, every quiet act. A verse. The screen returned to black and white, not film clips. Real memories. Keanu at a cemetery, alone, standing at his daughter's grave, eyes hollow, hands pulled tight inside the sleeves of his coat. Another flash, a New York subway train. He sat surrounded by strangers, unnoticed, hunched in a corner. Head tilted, as if listening to something no one else could hear. There's a weight some carry, not because they want to be strong, but because the world gave them no other choice. The testimonies came back. This time layered, overlapping, a crew member on set. He always showed up early, never complained. One day I was limping. He gave me his chair. I was just background. Nurse, my mom was dying. We were in the same hospital. He sat with us for 15 minutes. Never said who he was. He was just there. A man in a hoodie face blurred. He paid for my brother's surgery. No interviews, no headlines. I only found out because the hospital called. Back in the studio, the host leaned toward Keanu again. This time, her smile. Tight. Careful. You know, the host said again, voice faintly bitter, people like to romanticize suffering. They say pain makes us deeper, more human, but I think pain is just pain. It doesn't make you wiser, it just ruins things. She gave a sharp, hollow laugh. Keanu didn't interrupt, he just listened. That same steady presence, open, silent, not to challenge. To witness. The host exhaled, waving her hand like brushing it all away. I mean, look, you wear a cross, that's fine. But you don't actually think it means something, right? It's just fashion, symbolic, maybe. The room waited. Keanu slowly turned his gaze toward her. His voice came calm but with a quiet edge that hadn't been there before. I don't wear it for fashion, he said. I wear it for memory. For forgiveness. For survival. His words weren't theatrical. They were lived. Like he'd whispered them to himself in dark places when no one was watching. The camera zoomed slightly on the cross. Now it didn't look like jewelry. It looked like a story, one the world had only just started reading. The host didn't reply. Her mouth opened, then closed again. The audience sat still. No phones, no whispering. No laughter. Just presence. The narrator's voice returned, soft, steady. In a world obsessed with loud opinions, there's something sacred and unsettling about a man who simply lives what he believes. Keanu didn't add more. He just breathed in, out, holding the moment. The host cleared her throat. She smiled again, but it didn't land. Something was cracking. Not on stage. Inside her. No one expected that the one who mocked him most was about to reveal something that would change everything. The show and her. The program returned from commercial. But the air in the studio had changed. Quieter, still, the audience. Once eager to laugh, now watched with wide eyes and open hearts. Even the lighting felt softer. As if the cameras understood, this next part wasn't in the script. The host walked back to her seat. Composed, but not like before. Her smile was still there, but it didn't reach her eyes. She glanced at Keanu, then at her own hands. One of them trembled. She tried to laugh it off, but her voice cracked. Okay, she said almost to herself. Let's talk about something real. Keanu didn't move. He waited, patient, grounded, ready. The host took a breath, leaned forward. Her tone was lower now, stripped of performance. When I was little, she said, I used to pray every night. I'd close my eyes tight and ask God to make me normal. She paused. I didn't even know what that meant. I just thought, maybe if I was normal, I wouldn't be scared all the time. Wouldn't feel wrong. The audience stayed silent. But now the quiet was sacred. Her voice softened. And I'd pray, please don't let me go to hell. Please just let me be enough. The way I am. Another pause. A breath. But nothing happened. I kept waiting for a sign. A voice. Anything. Eventually, she said, I stopped asking. And I started laughing at it all, at the prayers, the books, the people who still believed. I told myself, it's all fiction. Just a crutch for people who can't handle life. She gave a broken laugh, not mocking now. Just tired. Maybe I didn't laugh at your faith, Keanu. Maybe I laughed at my pain. Keanu looked at her. Not with judgment. Not pity, just, compassion. The camera caught his face as he leaned in. His voice low. No one who suffers while praying is ever alone. Someone always hears, even if you didn't know it. For a moment, nothing moved. A woman in the audience wiped a tear. Another held her breath. The host blinked slowly, her mask fading. I used to think silence meant no one was listening, she whispered. But maybe I just didn't know how to listen back. The camera slowly zoomed out. Keanu and the host, No spotlights, no music. Just two people raw, uncovered, before the world. Keanu didn't speak again. He didn't need to. The host looked at him, really looked, and gave a soft nod. Almost a thank you, or maybe, "I'm still here," the narrator returned. "Sometimes. The hardest part of healing is admitting you need it, and sometimes the most powerful confession is simply telling the truth." But this wasn't the end of the moment, not even close, because behind the scenes, something even more revealing was about to erupt, and not even the cameras could contain. What came next? Just hours after the show aired, clips spread like wildfire online. Keanu's stillness. The host's trembling voice. The silence that took over the studio. It felt different. Real. Something no production team could manufacture. But backstage, the unraveling had already begun. A secretly recorded video captured by someone behind the curtain was about to go viral. At first, it seemed like nothing. Just the usual producer chatter during a commercial break. But then, a voice cut through clear, sharp, intentional. "We want the God stuff pushed," someone said. "She needs to poke him. Get him to react. That's what drives clips." Another voice replied, uncertain, "You sure? He's not the type who fights back." "Exactly. That makes it better." The video went viral within minutes. At first glance, it seemed like harmless behind-the-scenes gossip. But soon after, a former producer went live, speaking straight to camera. He looked nervous but steady. "I worked on that show for 3 years," he said. There were always instructions, sometimes unspoken, sometimes printed to target. Guests who talked about faith. He looked down, then back up. It wasn't curiosity, it was about provocation, especially spiritual guests. That's what the network wanted: tension, conflict, viral moments. He hesitated, then added, "I saw the notes for tonight." They asked her to go after Keanu. Screenshots surfaced next. Internal memos, suggested lines, sarcastic jokes. Prompts crafted to mock. The hashtag respect faith began trending within hours. What began as an interview now felt like an ambush, but the plan backfired, because Keanu didn't fight, didn't argue, didn't even try to win. He just stayed true. More voices joined in: actors, musicians, regular people. There's strength in stillness. Faith doesn't need to be loud to be real. He had more grace in silence than the whole show did in an hour. Even non-believers joined, not defending religion, but defending the right to believe. The host? She went quiet, no posts. No interviews. Then late that night, one tweet appeared. "Some moments on live TV aren't scripted. They're human. Tonight I was human." I'm still processing what that means. Comments flooded in. Some angry, some forgiving. Many just asking why. The leaks kept coming. A former assistant posted, "They told us he wouldn't push back, that he was too polite." But they didn't realize his silence would say everything. News outlets picked it up. Journalists debated. Faith leaders weighed in. Psychologists were brought on to discuss moral stillness in media. Even satire shows talked about it with a strange respect. "It's weird," one host said, "but something about that moment made us all stop laughing." And Keanu? He didn't respond. No press. No statements. Just one thing, a post. A single image, his cross resting on a closed book. No caption. It was shared over 6 million times in one day. People filled the comments themselves. For the quiet warriors, faith under fire. The book is closed, but the message speaks. The conversation only grew. Think pieces flooded timelines. Some praised Keanu's calm, others questioned the show's ethics. Many explored the deeper cultural hunger for meaning in a world that often mocks belief. Eventually, the host gave one interview, different network. She looked tired, stripped of glamour. Her voice soft. "I didn't expect to feel anything," she said. "But he didn't argue. He didn't mock me back. He just listened, and that did something to What started as a segment had become a cultural reckoning, and in the next live broadcast, when Keanu returned to the stage, something happened. Something that no script, no studio, no platform could predict. The network didn't wait. Barely. A week after the first interview aired, they announced it. Keanu Reeves, live, again. This time the promotion was different. No sarcasm, no clickbait. Just a simple promise. The conversation that moved the world continues. When the night came, the studio was packed, lines wrapped around the block. People holding signs not of protest but presence. Silence speaks. Faith is not a fault. More Keanu, less noise. Inside, the air felt charged different. Not like last time, where people waited to laugh. Now they waited to feel something real. Keanu entered just as before, quiet, calm, same cross, same jacket, same stillness. The host greeted him, nervous, her tone softer. "Keanu," she said, "thanks for coming back." He nodded, gave a small smile. "Thanks for the invitation." She began with a gentler question. "How did you feel after the last interview?" But before he could respond, something strange unfolded. The lights didn't just dim, they pulsed, sharp and sudden. The monitors behind them glitched briefly. A quiet gasp moved through the audience. One of the sound techs leaned forward. In the booth. Then absolute silence. The mics died. The lights faded almost to black. The ambient hum of the studio vanished. For 10 seconds, the entire set was swallowed by a stillness so profound, it felt not of this world. Keanu didn't flinch. He sat still, hands calmly resting on his lap, the cross on his chest catching the faint red glow of emergency lighting. The host froze, speechless. No one in the audience moved. Even the crew stood paralyzed, unsure if they should step in. Then, the world blinked awake again. The lights returned. The sound came back. The screens reset, but something invisible had shifted. The host stared forward, stunned. Her eyes filled, not with fear, but something deeper. Something within. She turned to Keanu, her voice shaking. "I don't know what that was." Keanu met her eyes, calm and unwavering. "It was never about winning an argument," he said. Softly, "it was about touching a soul." And for a second time, the world paused. The audience didn't clap. No one cheered. They just sat, with him, with her, with themselves. As if for one quiet breath in time. Everyone there remembered something long forgotten. Stillness, presence, reverence. The narrator returned. "There are moments that defy logic. Moments science tries to label malfunction, glitch, coincidence. But what if it was none of those? What if, for one heartbeat in time, the world bowed to something unseen? Later, technicians would call it a system reboot, an overvoltage, a software error, but no one truly believed that, not after seeing the host's eyes. Not after the way Keanu sat, unmoved, as if he'd expected it. Not after how it felt. That 10-second blackout, followed by silence, would become the most watched moment in the show's history, not because of what was said, but because of what was felt. That single, eerie pause became one of the most replayed, analyzed, and personally shared moments online. And what Keanu did next would reach even the most hardened hearts. The video, that 10-second silence, spread like wildfire. Talk shows played it again and again. Analysts slowed it down. Podcasts turned it into metaphor. Some said it was just a glitch. Others called it divine, but no one could deny. It changed people. Millions didn't watch it once. They watched it repeatedly. Not to understand it, but to feel again what it made them feel. That strange, sacred stillness. That peace no one could explain. In a world drowning in noise. It had said more than any argument ever could. Keanu didn't issue a statement. He didn't go on interviews. He didn't explain. He simply posted a photo, a wooden table, a weathered book closed on top, his cross draped gently over it. The caption, "Sometimes silence is the most powerful answer." No trending tags, no hashtags. It didn't need them. The host posted something the next day. No makeup, no lighting. Just her speaking into her phone camera. Her voice was softer, clearer. "I didn't know what I was doing that night," she said. "I thought I was in control. I thought the goal was to win, but he didn't try to win. He just held space, and maybe God did speak to me that night." And I finally stopped laughing long enough to listen. To everyone's surprise, the internet didn't cancel her. It embraced her, because in her vulnerability, people saw something familiar. Not weakness, Not a collapse, but honesty. Something in themselves. Soon a wave began. A hashtag flooded the internet. Hashtag my faith is not AF alt, not in protest, but in testimony. People from all backgrounds, believers and non-believers, began to share. A woman wrote, I stopped wearing my necklace after someone mocked it. I just put it back on. A teenager shared, I never believed in anything, but maybe I can start believing in peace. A man from Brazil posted, my mother used to pray for me. I'd roll my eyes. Today I thanked her. Churches, mosques, synagogues, meditation circles, they all echoed the same truth. Faith doesn't need to shout. News networks tried to dissect it. Some specialists talked tech voltage drops, software bugs, but others saw something deeper. Neurologist said, the body responds to that clip the way it does to sacred music, slow heartbeat, lower cortisol. Whatever happened touched people physically. A therapist added, we're not used to people holding silence without conflict. That moment? It was a cultural reset. It wasn't about winning anymore. It was about remembering that grace, presence, and truth don't need to be loud. Back at the studio, the host quietly stepped away. No scandal. No drama. Just a post. Some conversations matter more than content. Thank you, Keanu. He didn't reply. But a day later, a photo appeared, a candle lit, a folded note beside it. Written in simple words. You were heard. The narrator returned. Keanu Reeves didn't preach. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He carried pain, but never as a weapon. And in a world addicted to volume, he reminded us, faith isn't weakness, and silence can be sacred. As the final montage played, a child in a hospital room watched the clip, whispering, that's what calm looks like. A father hugged his daughter at the airport, both wearing crosses. A group of strangers gathered on a rooftop in silence, phones turned off, just breathing. And finally, Keanu walked alone through a quiet park, the sun setting behind him, the cross resting over his chest. And maybe this story was never about a talk show. Never about Keanu. Maybe this was the start of something deeper, something long asleep, the kind of faith that doesn't need to shout to be heard.